So I believe we're live, and I'll wait for a few people to trickle in here before I begin. Of course, you can probably tell by my hair, it is excruciatingly hot. the the Northeast, in New York and New Jersey specifically. Right now I'm looking at my computer and it says 88 degrees and sunny, which is good because I thought it was going to rain all week, and it's yet May, but so far that hasn't materialized. It is sunny though, and I'm gonna try to do this without any fan, so I'll probably be sweating through most of this. And of course, the computer is not cooperating. It's already stalled or frozen at least half a dozen times before I even began this video, which is nice. But it actually does help me get started on the main theme of this video, which was occasioned by a conversation I had on Twitter yesterday with a few people who were touting alternative media. And this is one of my big pet peeves. I don't know how many of you are using alternative social media sites. The corresponding equivalent for YouTube would be BitChute, and for Twitter it would be Gab, I believe. I don't know if Parler has moved into that niche, but it would be Gab or Parler, and I think Odyssey is another new one. And I watched one video on that site the other day, and it seemed to be pretty functional. But my issue with these people who advocate alt tech is that they're essentially demanding that people leave functional, albeit very hostile, platforms like YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. And I think Facebook is probably either Facebook or Twitter is the worst. Twitter is the most, theoretically, would be the most easy to find a substitute for. But the people who advocate for this, who advocate for migrating to alt tech alternatives, is that they're essentially telling people to abandon those who haven't already been exiled from the mainstream social media platforms. They're advocating that they migrate to less functional, less well-adapted alternatives. And the responses, hi Alejandro, and the responses vary. One of them is that these social media alternatives are consciously hampered by the elites, banking companies, credit card companies, the titans of these monopolistic enterprises like Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and Susan Wojcicki. And it's a valid point. One of the reasons these alternative platforms are barely functional is because they've been sabotaged. Tim Cook deliberately took Parler off of Apple, out of the Apple Store, their app, and it basically destroyed them for months before they were reinstated. Gab as well. There was a conspiracy to deny them service so that they couldn't, so that users couldn't access that site. So this is a valid point in their favor. The fact that these sites have been sabotaged to a large degree. But even so, that doesn't explain the fact that when you get on these sites, BitChute is a perfect example of this. I tried uploading 2 videos to BitChute. This must have been this was last year, and one of them was an original video that I had created. Okay. All right. I'm gonna try to see. I told you this is so. Let me give an analogy. The people arguing that we should go to these platforms, they're arguing that they should go to platforms that may have some very worthwhile content. Like, there are a lot of good content creators who've already left the mainstream social media platforms. For example, Dave Cullen, Computing Forever, I think is over there now. James Alsop left a couple of years ago, I believe. He was completely banned. So there's some useful. There are some Christian apologists who I believe David Wood now is uploading his videos, his Act 17 apologetics videos, to Rumble as well. So there's some very good content creators who've already left the building or have one foot out the door. But for the most part, there's one huge hindrance, which is that these sites are they're not the people that run them are not competent entrepreneurs. The format and the interface is terrible for the most part whenever you go to one of these sites. And it would be like if I was billing myself as the alternative to more polished, more professional, conservative or libertarian YouTubers, and said you have to go to my site, my channel, and you go to my channel and there's buzzing sounds, there's the lighting is terrible for the most part, you would be very disappointed, and you wouldn't trust that the person who gave you that advice. And this is my problem with the alt tech gurus, the people who want to promise that these are viable alternatives for those who've been shunned. Another problem is they're mostly about politics. Like I said, David Wood uploads his videos now to Rumble, and El Hypocrite, or Le Hypocrite, I don't know how you say his name. He's kind of he does politics, but he also does more so social cultural currents. So, for example, he did a video on the gay rights movement and how they overlook certain inescapable negative consequences of their lifestyle. And that was taken down by YouTube just recently, just the other day. So he does a lot of not necessarily non-political, but videos that aren't focused on topical political issues, like Joe Biden and the Democratic Party and the internecine battles within the GOP. So there are a couple of people like that do cover other areas of life. But yeah, for the most part, it's strictly political YouTubers who are banned from YouTube, or political Twitter accounts who are banned from Twitter. It's not really a broad-based perspective on life, which is what you get when you go to a place like YouTube for whatever its deep flaws, and I readily concede them. There does need to be an alternative where people are not going to be censored. I mean, when you can't even discuss something like COVID-19, which has been the most pressing issue over the past year and a half, when you can't discuss that without being censored or ejected from the platform, there's a problem that needs to be addressed. So I'm not dismissing their complaint. They have a very valid complaint. The idea that there needs to be not only alternative platforms, but alternative banks and credit card processing. And I mean, in terms of my political philosophy, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. So I think the ultimate solution to this is to sever ties with people who are trying to control your life, control what you see and what you listen to, and have values that are antithetical to your values. I think the ultimate solution is secession. So yeah, not just build your own YouTube, build your own society where you can instill a society which is organized around mutually shared values and beliefs. So in that respect, I'm all for I'm sorry, my nose is itchy. I'm all for that objection, and I'm all for their solution is to build an alternative. The problem is their alternative is a vastly inferior version to the existing infrastructure. Now, it's not inferior in terms of it may not be inferior in terms of the intellectual content. These people are obviously not simply regurgitating stale talking points that they've been given by the Washington Post and the New York Times and then MSNBC, but it's inferior in every other respect, in terms of presentation, in terms of functionality. And I'm sorry, you're not going to get a lot of people, even conservatives and libertarians and constitutionalists and free speech advocates. You're not going to get a lot of those people to abandon what exists in favor of something that is not as palatable in many ways. It's like I'm trying to think of an analogy for this, but it's kind of like saying, okay, you're going to secede from the existing union and then establish a state with which doesn't have potable water, which doesn't have any functional transportation system, which you're simply not going to get people to buy into that. Yeah, Odyssey, that's another one. Yeah, like I said, I could be wrong about this because I haven't used as many of these. I was on Gab for a little bit and I abandoned it. This was before they started to be persecuted by the mainstream news media and the tech companies and deplatformed. But I was on it for like a year or so. And that Gab, I think, was the only alternative platform that I used for a while. And I just abandoned because there was no one there. But some of the newer alternatives seem to be, and I could be wrong about this, but they seem to be more usable or more user-friendly. Odyssey may be one of those. I watched a video. I watched one of iHypocrite's videos on Odyssey. Not the gay rights video, but the one. It was sort of related to that, examining the negative correlations to gay rights activism insofar as the lifestyle itself, some of the deleterious consequences of that aren't really highlighted in LGBT activism and LGBT circles. So, oh yeah, I'm sorry, Alejandro. Yeah, I tried it. I gave it a good, I would say a year maybe, or maybe less. While I used Gab while my first account on Twitter was banned. And I think a lot of people do that. They're banned from
mainstream social media platform, and they give these alternatives a chance. And unfortunately, even though they invest time and some of them even invest money, I never sent any money to Andrew Torba, it's not really reciprocated. I mean, they use it and it's not a good experience in many respects. I mean, they're not able to communicate, they're not able to debate. Another aspect of this that and this has been mentioned before, so this is not a new critique. But another aspect of this is that you're walled off. You're part of this insular community where everyone or most of the people agree with you 90% of the time. And I don't think the people who create these alternatives understand one of the aspects of social media that's appealing is that you can debate others. You can challenge the predominant narrative. And this was one of the great things about Twitter when it was still a relatively open platform. You could get on there and you could challenge the ridiculous tweets by celebrities and journos and blue check marks. And you had no other platform in which to do that, particularly recently when all of these newspapers and news websites started eliminating their comment sections. So this was the one forum where you could seriously test the waters as far as debating these people who, for the most part, don't want to expose their ideas to any criticism. And this is one of the reasons that Twitter cracked down, along with diluting the voice. It was somewhat contingent on the season, because this occurred obviously prior to the last presidential election, and it was a way of thwarting Trump supporters. But another reason they did this was because these blue check marks were being clowned on the platform. They were being embarrassed, and they wanted to immunize them from criticism. Yeah, Dissenter. I'll give Gab credit for this. The Dissenter app was a very clever idea, and like I said, these people deserve credit. They deserve credit insofar as they went out on a limb, and they're trying to come up with a solution to this problem. And as I said, it's a very evident problem. It's that needs to be solved. I just don't think the people supporting these platforms are doing conservatism or anti-progressivism. I don't think they're doing those philosophies a favor by standing for terrible apps that don't work and that aren't going to be the solution to this problem. Anyway, I am sweating profusely, so I think I'm gonna thank you, Alejandro, for your contributions, and all of the lurkers, the people who watch this and will watch in the future. Feel free to add your 2 cents in the comments. I'm sure there are a lot of people that disagree with this, but I'll leave this video up, and you can lodge your criticisms in the comment section below. Have a good day. Keep cool.